Hello and welcome to the top 10 N.A.D build characters on Bleach Brave Souls. Keep in mind this is the 10 best characters with the N.A.D build, not with the N.A.D link. So those of you who got upset when I included strong attack recharge characters in the strong attack damage builds may want to keep that in mind when you see some characters that have DR. Also, while I did have PvP in consideration, this is not a top 10 PvP list, so please try to keep that in mind. Lastly, before I get started, I want to point out that this list was really difficult to do because there were so many good candidates and so many top tier N.A.D characters that didn't make it on the list just because there were so many. So I invite you to watch the explanation video after this video, linked in the description below, to kind of see why I picked the characters that I picked and to see some of the characters that didn't get chosen, because like I said, there are a lot of great characters. Now kicking off the list, we have Ururu, Christmas Edition, who is an odd choice considering she does not have the normal attack damage link. But she does have a ridiculously high attack and a plus 40 bruiser. She's also a ranged character and has a strong attack 3 and a special that have a chance to inflict debilitating freezing on the enemies. But probably her best quality is the fact that she's a healer, which makes her a team player not only in PvE but also in PvP. She also has no affiliation, which means there's nothing that has a killer against her. And while she does have a strong attack recharge link instead of a N.A.D link, it can still come in handy in getting both her strong attack 3 that can inflict freezing and her healing back faster. At number 9, we have a character that I really wish I could have put higher on this list, just because it happens to be one of my favorite characters, Halloween Yoruichi. Not only does she have a ridiculously high attack, but also a boosted normal attack damage link, and a plus 40 bruiser, meaning that by herself she increases her own normal attack damage by 65%. Speaking of which, her normal attack is also ridiculously fast, and although she's a N.A.D character, her strong attacks and her special all have a chance of inflicting paralysis, and a debilitating paralysis at that, which make them all extremely dangerous, especially her strong attack 2, in which she surrounds herself in a vortex and hits enemies from all sides, highly increasing the chance of paralysis and pretty much making it toward they can't attack her. She also has an increased number of flash slaps and long stride, which if you combine with the strong attack 2, makes for a pretty good strategy for paralyzing enemies before dealing a massive amount of damage. Next on the list, much like Yoruichi, is another character that is also one of my favorite characters, and I really wanted to put him higher on the list. Sadly, this is as far as he made it. Here is White Zangetsu. This character actually shares a lot of similar things to Yoruichi. He has debilitating weakening on all of his strong attacks, and he also has a strong attack 2 that's a vortex move. And while his special doesn't inflict a status ailment with his weakening, it does inflict a defense debuff, which certainly helps him do more damage after it's used. For the most part, him and Yoruichi are pretty much tied, and I had a hard time figuring out who would be at 8 and 9. But in the end, all of Zangetsu's stats, with the exception of his stamina, were higher than Yoruichi's. And I know what you're thinking, Yoruichi has the boosted soul trait. However, while she only has 40 bruiser, he has 50, which means by himself he increases his own normal attacks by 70%. Next up on the list is a character that's probably gonna confuse most of you as to why he's this high up on the list. I'll take this time to remind you that this isn't a DR build list, it's a N.A.D build list. And this guy's N.A.D build is absolutely devastating. Sure, he doesn't have the fastest attack speed in the game, or the second fastest, but man do they pack a punch. This is because, as many of you know, Kenny happens to have Flurry, which makes normal attacks hit twice, and is almost the equivalent of having a plus 100 bruiser. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this character's attack speed isn't very good, and his actual attack stat isn't the best. But when you have Flurry, you might as well double it, and he also has that boosting strong attack 2, which increases his attack and that of his teammates by 33%, as well as his defense and focus, which nobody cares about focus. Unfortunately, the boost doesn't last very long, but even without it, he still deals a massive amount of damage. 行くぜグランレイせろさっさと死にやがれ Coming in at number 6 on the list is a spot at number 5, Noitora Gilga. This Noitora may not have the highest attack, in fact I think he has the lowest attack from anyone on this list, but he can still pack a punch. Much like Kenny before him, he also has Flurry. Unlike Kenny though, he has a much faster attack speed. Also unlike Kenny, he actually has the normal attack damage link, essentially giving him the equivalent of what would be a 140% bruiser. But that's not all. Noitora also has a Vortex move, which is very useful for a normal attack damaging character to have, because it allows them to trap their enemies and just hit them as much as they can. Noitora's special is also useful for this build because it inflicts a defense debuff that combined with this build is very devastating. In addition to all of this, Noitora also has the highest defense in the entire game, which has become increasingly more relevant in PvP as the game keeps producing normal attack damage characters.
これはプレゼントだ。僕と一緒にいよう。ずーっとね。
Next up on the list we have Shukuro Tsukishima White Day Edition, who is the newest N.A.D character to be added, and a very good addition to the game. He has a ridiculously high attack, along with a plus 20 N.A.D link and a plus 40 bruiser, and a pretty impressive SP, although it's likely not to be used for this build. But even though he's likely to have a low SP for this build, his strong attacks are still very useful. In addition to hitting multiple times, his strong attacks 1 and 3 have a chance to inflict debilitating weakening, and his strong attack 2 forms a shield around him and his allies, which can really come in handy when fighting a boss. But I haven't even gotten to the best part of this character, his N.A.D. After all, it is a N.A.D build list, and man is his impressive. You see, much like 2 of his strong attacks and his special, his normal attack can also inflict debilitating weakening, which is a very big deal considering he's ranged and his normal attacks are piercing, meaning they hit multiple times and can pass through enemies to hit enemies behind them, highly increasing the chance of inflicting weakening, which reduces the defense of the opponents and pretty much makes their damage output 1.
見たまえ、僕の素晴らしい実験の成果だよ。君にはお似合いさ。
Up next on the list we have Xayaloporo Grants, the 8th Espada, which much like Tsukishima is also a ranged character with a really high attack. Unlike Tsukishima though, his normal attack inflicts poison, not weakening. He also has Debilitator, and his strong attacks 3 and his special also inflict poison. His attack is also higher, and his N.A.D link is boosted. And if that wasn't enough to make him deal a massive amount of damage, his strong attack 2 is a boost move that temporarily increases his attack, defense, and focus by 33%, allowing him to do much more damage. This boost move is also a heal move, so if Xayaloporo or any other team member starts to get low, he could simply just heal him. It's a unique mechanic we've only seen in this character, and who knows if we'll see it again considering it's really overpowered.
陸上天元妙断崖上へ。
At number 3 on the list, we have the character with the highest damage output from normal attacks in the entire game. I'm talking of course about Manga Saji. He is tied with the second highest attack for the entire game, and he has both Poise and Flurry, not to mention the normal attack damage link, which much like Noitora, makes him the equivalent of 140 bruiser, only his attack is over 100 points higher. And although his attack isn't as fast as Noitora, it is a little unique in that after he uses his special, the last attack on his combo gets a very big boost in range. Unlike most of the other characters on this list, there's not really much more to say about this character. He just deals a massive amount of damage, and that's what got him so high up on the list.
挽回水無月雑境はこれにておしまい。
Now Retsu can't deal as much damage as Sajin, but we all know why she's at number 2. It's her ability to heal. And I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of feel a little bad for this. After all, in the past, normal attack damage has been all about the actual damage, and that would have placed Sajin at number 1. But I have to take everything into consideration, and Retsu has some qualities that you just can't overlook. For one, she does have the highest attack in the game, and her attack speed is much faster. But as I mentioned earlier, her ability to heal is what puts her at number 2, because even though the damage output would be a little bit less, Retsu is able to fight for much longer periods of time because she can just continue to heal herself, as well as the rest of the team. She also has her special that also heals her 60%, but also has the chance to instantly kill the enemy, which really saves a lot of time. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there are several characters that I would have loved to put in here that just couldn't make it, so here's a few honorable mentions.
行こう。とどめと行くぜ。
これでどうだ。
邪魔はさせない。蒼天に座せ氷輪丸。まだ分かっていないようだな。無駄だということが。いや甘いの。
And at number 1 is the only other possible character that can possibly be number 1, the captain of Squad 1, Genryusai one-armed version. I'm sure it's kind of obvious why this character is at number 1. His attack is extremely high, he also has poise and flurry, but he has something that the other guys don't, and that's a chance of inflicting debilitating burn on absolutely everything he has. And I know that some of you are thinking, big deal, other characters can also inflict status ailments on their normal attacks. Well, not like this guy can. You see, while there is a 2% chance for every hit on their normal attacks and their strong attacks, the chances are basically doubled with Genryusai because he has flurry. And while most people will chappy him, his strong attacks still have a chance of inflicting that burn, as they have great range and hit multiple times. And while he doesn't have the N.A.D link that Sajin has, or the heal moves that Yachiru has, the debilitating burn more than makes up for it, as you can just burn enemies that block melee damage in extreme co-op and inherit zones, and burn both Sajin and Yachiru in PvP, because you know that sooner or later, he is gonna inflict burn. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, if you want a further explanation as to why I picked the characters I picked, in the order that I picked them, and why some of them got left out, click the link in the description below to watch the explanation video.